Caribbean Examinations Council, and it is indeed my honor and privilege to be the Master of Ceremonies for today's closing ceremony for the inaugural Regional Education Conference and the commencement of the 2026 CXC Ministerial Forum. Let me first ask by a show of hands, for those who have been with us for the last 3 days, how many persons have found this to be a truly exciting and rewarding experience? Let's hear it for you. Round of applause. It has certainly been a time of interesting reflection, a time of research, opportunities, connections, networking for all. And from what I've observed, looking at the session that preceded this one, it seemed to have been a never-ending episode where persons were certainly excited to engage in discourse, and we're looking for further opportunities to do that. And we unfortunately had to conclude that session, but I know that all of you were really excited by what transpired. And so we know that you've enjoyed the sessions for the last couple days. You have been truly committed delegates, engaged in critical discourses, which we all know would have benefited you and your practice in whichever space in the education terrain and within the regional education ecosystem you belong. You brought with you your ideas, your new perspectives, your valued insights, your research experiences, and your unique positionality as research practitioners and change agents in action. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the critical crossroads at the inaugural Regional Education Conference hosted by CXC. As your MC this evening, I want to first express my appreciation to you for your generous attention this evening, as I have the special honor, as I said, of taking you through this evening's proceedings. First and foremost, please allow me to bid a special good evening to our distinguished ministers of education who have assembled here from across the region. With us today, we have the Honorable Sheila Rogers Webster from Anguilla, the Senator, the Honorable Chad Blackman from Barbados, the Honorable Octavia Alfred from the Commonwealth of Dominica, Mrs. Lorraine St. Louis Ned, Permanent Secretary, who has been deputized for the Honorable David Andrew, Minister of Education in Grenada, the Honorable Savitri Parag from Guyana, the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley from St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Danny Butcher from St. Lucia, and the Honorable Philip Jackson from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we would like to first of all welcome them with a rousing round of applause for being with us today. I also wish to make special mention of our keynote speaker, Ms. Sonia Parag, who in fact is not just the Honorable Minister of Education, she is the chair of the CARICOM Council on Human and Social Development, Ministers of Education, and also the Honorable Octavia Alfred, who is the chair of the Council of Education Ministers for the OECS. So they're both here with us. I also wish to welcome and to pay special tribute to the Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development of CARICOM, Ms. Alison Drayton, who is here with us today, Permanent Secretaries of Member States, Chairman and Deputy Chair of CXC, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles and Dr. Marcia Potter, Dr. Wayne Wesley, Registrar and CEO, and other executives and staff of CXC, and members of the CXC Board of Governors who are in our Assembly, the President of the Commonwealth of Learning, Professor Peter Scott, who's with us today, conference delegates, sponsors, partners, contributors, those specially invited guests, and of course, all who are with us. As I said, a special welcome to all of you at this auspicious and special ceremony, which marks the successful conclusion of our inaugural Regional Education Conference and the commencement of the 2026 Ministerial Forum. Today marks yet another milestone in the CXC calendar, where we shift from educational ideas to focused collaboration for practice and policy. This is an evening of celebration, a time for reflection, and marks the way forward as we champion the cause for regional education with a common agenda. We have two firsts. CXC's first regional, and I dare say, ladies and gentlemen, international conference, which we have just been a part of and we have just concluded. But it also marks the first time CXC has engaged 14 CARICOM ministers of education in our ministerial meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, we have shifted from an average of 30% to 70% of ministers from CARICOM from across the region who are today with us in this meeting. This is indeed an accomplishment for us. It should be noted that all except one CXC territory are represented by their ministers in our meeting today. This is something we at CXC are truly grateful for, and it is indeed historic in itself. And let us hear again for our ministers who are here with us, because they've taken time out from their very busy schedule to be with us today. So from us at CXC, I wish you a delightful evening as we draw the curtains down on our just concluded conference and the lifting of our CXC partnership banner, signaling focused ministerial dialogue, policy commitments, and strategic action by CXC for the region. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I would like to request that all stand as we salute our host country, Jamaica, marked by the national anthem, and then we remain standing for the playing of the CARICOM song. Thank you, delegates, for your kind attention. Dance to the CARICOM song. Okay.
seeking adventure, some bound in chains, through battles waged and fought, through victory and pain, by test of their courage, our freedom was gained. In homage to those gone before us, the heroes of lands in the sun, we vow to join hands and to focus on building one Caribbean. Raise your voices high, sing of your Caribbean pride. Sing it loud and strong, feel our hearts beat as one. Celebrate in song as we rise to heights where we
Well, there certainly has been, you may have your seats, certainly been continuous improvement from where we started to where we are now. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. As educators, we strive for continuous improvement. Before I turn to the next item on the next segment on the agenda, let me first indicate that Dr. the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, Minister of Education, Minister of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, is unavoidably absent, but in her stead, we have a permanent secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, who is with us. So we want to first say thank you for being with us and welcome you. And also with us, we have the University of Guyana's Vice Chancellor, who is a member of council, Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce the next segment, the next item. The next item is a summary of our conference, which has just concluded. And to give these remarks is none other than Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations of CXC and the Chair of the Conference Committee. Dr. Nicole Manning provides leadership of the assessment services at the Council. This includes oversight for assessment development and all related quality customer and stakeholder engagements. And as I mentioned, she's the chair of the CXC Inaugural Regional Education Conference Planning Committee, and so she will address you now. Welcome, Dr. Manning.
I stand on the protocols established, but I have to, of course, greet my chairman, along with, I haven't seen him all session. I know he has been very busy, so special welcome to my chair. Did you all enjoy the conference? Yes. Awesome, wonderful. We have our old patronage in Jamaica, Miss Lou. She would say, clap yourself. Awesome, wonderful. So I'll be brief. This conference was, I should say, a lot of work, but it was well worth it. Something long in coming. I know my registrar will tell you that this has been on my heart for about 3 years. And I tell you, we have not, and so far, still holding it, none of the cost is there's a charge to the council. Absolutely none. But the good thing is that we would have had a rich engagement. So the revenue on this, as my finance director is here, is great. Far more than we could ever imagine. And so that is the big thing that we're taking away. Honorable ministers, permanent secretaries, CEOs, I know that we have a lot of work to do, but I know we're all committed. We are committed. I just want to say the basic thing, major, is the collective call to action. And that's really just a brief component I want to say. The conference concluded with a shared commitment to proactive, future-oriented leadership and policy coherence. Assessment reform that prioritizes fairness, authenticity, and competence at all levels. Sustained investment in teachers, accessibility, and digital infrastructure. Strong regional collaboration and shared ownership of reform. Overall, the conference affirmed the Caribbean's determination to move from rhetoric to action, building education systems that are inclusive, resilient, ethically grounded, future-ready in the face of rapid technological change. We would have heard this morning in particular, and this morning in particular, that we should understand that when leadership hesitates, education collapses. So therefore, adaptive leadership is very, very important. We also heard from our other keynote speaker yesterday in terms of framed technological change, especially AI, is inevitable but manageable. And with that, based on the feedback we have already received, it's important to note that coming out of our second to last session, our Honorable Minister of Education from Turks and Caicos Islands noted that the budget should support the change. And we have heard not only a request for another conference, but I think I'm not going to look down, I'm looking straight up, but I think I'm hearing that we're getting some commitment, Dr. Wesley, for our next conference. So we're looking to add to that. But the inclusion of the voices of the students in a great way, the inclusion of the voices of our parents in a great way. So we have heard and we are ready to make the step and to make that change. Let me say thank you to everyone that attended this conference, and most of all, my very tired team. Thank you very much. I know there's an official vote of thanks, but I just had to say that. Last but not least, we cannot leave the conference without giving about 5 giveaways. So we have 5 giveaways, and if we can get 5 persons to tell us what hit you the most in this conference, 5 persons. If I can get 5 persons to run up here and give us at least one thing that hit you mostly in this conference, you have a gift. I see somebody coming up already. So come quickly, because this is call to action. As my videographers at the back get ready. Okay, come. Where's the mic? Okay, all right, let me use this one. They want to see you. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's amazing. One of the most interesting things is that when I see people getting different grades across the profiles and then end up getting a different grade 1 or 2, that really hit me at this conference. And it's something I'm taking away, and I will spread it to my teachers and my other colleagues, and we have to work on getting the best grade when we get those profiles. So if the profile, we're going to work on the maximum, so that's what hit me right here today, and we'll get the best grade CSEC. We are dedicated, and we will do that. Thanks.
Exciting.
Good day. My takeaway is that the statistics that has been shown from studies is so similar in the region, because I'm from Trinidad, and it's so similar to Jamaica, like even down to the rural areas. We experience that in Trinidad as well. So, I mean, it's just a regional thing that is happening across the board with mathematics. And that is amazing because we are able to experience it in this conference. And we're able to see that not just words are being said, but it's backed up with statistics. So I really enjoyed that part, and that was a wow moment for me.
Good afternoon, everyone. One of the most interested part of the presentation for me is that as teachers, we must move away from our old pedagogy and remember that we are teaching our students for the now and for the future.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was mainly impacted by the use of AI in math and the opportunity to learn that there's a study mode available that can help students advance their knowledge, and that we as teachers should challenge them in the classroom by questioning their understanding. We don't have to throw the AI, but then test how they understood, what they understood by the use of that technology. I'm also a big supporter of the dialogic assessment. I'm looking forward to it because we do have students who can deliver themselves better orally, and I know in performing arts we do the viva voce. Why not have them do an oral assessment? How did you arrive at this? What are the steps or processes you went through to get here? And if they can stand and deliver themselves, I think they are capable of receiving that grade 1. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now, the thing that stood out to me was the root cause of some of these problems, the things that we don't see on the surface. Yes, we're seeing the grades, yes, we're seeing the failures, but we are not looking at the root cause. Did that child come hungry to school that morning? Did that child have an issue on their way to school or with their parents? What are the underlying issues that are affecting these students? We think about it, but we have never thought to assess it. And I was happy when that was brought out, and that is what stood out to me. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So for me, it wasn't just one thing that stood out to me. To me, I was overwhelmed by this entire conference. I feel very motivated and proud as a Caribbean citizen to be in a room full of a wealth of knowledge. And just at the fact that this conference was so relevant and so actionable, I feel like we are headed in the right direction. So honestly, it's just a 10 out of 10 experience for me, and the entire thing wowed me. So that was me.
So you see your investment paid off, okay? It's a start. Videographer? An event of this magnitude, convening the finest minds in the Caribbean across 4 transformative days, is only possible through the generous partnership of those who share our vision for a region that places learning at the center of its future.
Looking ahead, there will certainly be no shortage of technology available to enhance learning, teaching, and assessment. The pace of innovation has been absolutely extraordinary and is now measured in months and not years. The challenge for all of us, governments, educators, and partners alike, is to responsibly harness that technology whilst ensuring the integrity, equity, and trust at the heart of education remains steadfast.
Digital transformation in education, in its truest and most impactful sense, must also be about improving learning. And we think artificial intelligence can definitely do that. It can help educators to personalize their instruction and spend more time on high-value teaching. If we want globally competitive citizens grounded in Caribbean identity and values, we have to build systems that develop both competence and character.
We meet at a moment when the pace of technological change is unprecedented. Artificial intelligence, automation, data analytics, and digital platforms are reshaping every sector of society.
Let us get education into a state where transformation continues to happen. CXC exists to serve these learners. We are the region's standard bearer for educational assessment. Over the next couple of days, we'll be talking about AI and digitalization in education. How do we harness the power of generative AI responsibly and effectively for teaching and learning? I cannot overemphasize enough, if we ensure that all our students are literate and numerate, they can learn anything else in the world. And so we have to pay attention. I know, but sometimes we sacrifice literacy and numeracy for general roundedness of the student. But let me tell you, if we spend the time to ensure somebody can read, calculate, and communicate, we would have served them well. Because anything else that they need to learn, they can learn on their own. No longer the teacher is the authority on content. Content has become ubiquitous. In fact, students will now challenge teachers in the classroom because they can pull information quickly and readily.
That places learning at the center of its future. Now, for a round of applause for all our distinguished leaders and delegates to the Regional Education Conference. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well done. We really enjoyed it, but we have more work to do. So I hand over to my colleague as he opens and treats with the Ministerial Forum. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manning. And certainly, it was a delightful time. And you can see from the video that people were very engaged and interested in what was being offered. Before I move to the next item on the program, I have a message from Professor Neville Ying, who said he's been waiting 53 years for this, and it has finally happened. So, Professor Ying, we want to say thank you for that comment, because certainly it's something to note. There's also another point we want to make in regards our future conference that we will host. And this is a comment that has been repeated by none other than Professor Mohammed Martin. And that is, we need the voice of students in this auditorium. And so we want to ensure that in the next conference, there will be greater participation and involvement of students as they engage in this discourse. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is certainly my distinct honor to introduce Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council. Professor Sir Hilary Beckles is a distinguished historian, academic leader, and advocate for social justice, who currently serves as Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. He's had a long and impactful career at the UA, where he served as Pro-Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Cayville campus in Barbados, and since 2015 as the esteemed Vice Chancellor. An internationally recognized scholar on Caribbean history, slavery, and reparatory justice, Professor Beckles has authored numerous books and articles and is a leading voice in global discussions on issues related to equity and development. He serves as the chair of the Caribbean Examinations Council and CARICOM Reparations Commission, and he's widely celebrated globally for his contributions to Caribbean history and the Caribbean society, and of course, West Indies cricket. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, it's my pleasure to introduce, to bring opening and special remarks, the chairman of CXC, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles.
Wow. I have never seen the registrar's face looking so miserable as he did on the video. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spent most of my life trying to make an honorable living by writing about historical events. Now I'm being called to participate in one. And that's wonderful. Our honorable ministers and distinguished leaders of our governments, all of our CARICOM colleagues and all of my CXC colleagues and other colleagues from institutions of higher education and on the whole in the education community. It's a pleasure to welcome you. In fact, it is a joy to welcome you. I wish to begin by saying how profoundly proud I am of where CXC has reached in its journey to service. I say this because I'm aware, like Professor Ying, of those formative years when 40 years ago we were writing curriculum for CXC. I remember writing the CSEC history syllabus as well as the CAPE syllabus for CXC, so it's been a long journey. And I have seen the organization coming to terms not only with itself, but coming to terms with the nature of its public service. And that has been very controversial and at times acrimonious. The institution itself is fundamentally, constitutionally, an examining body. But the society will never accept that definition of what their CXC is. They see CXC as having a broader sense of responsibility and a more fundamental sense of duty. Merging those conceptions has been difficult at times, and it's important for us to recognize how that has evolved. Now, there is tremendous anxiety in our community about economic development, in this case, stagnation, social justice, equity, identity, consciousness, and culture. And all of those forces are converging around the role and responsibility of CXC. And therefore, there are some contradictory omens and forces that are integral to all that CXC does. The boundaries are blurred. Navigating uncertain boundaries is intellectually stimulated, but also programmatically problematic. And I wish to speak to two of these issues. Take the issue, for example, of history. At the moment, history teaching is not mandatory in our community. But 50 years ago, it was. All Caribbean citizens involved in schools and so on had to participate in discussions around the history of their region and their civilization. At UWI, the history of the Caribbean was compulsory, no matter what subject you were studying, because then it was thought that if you're building a community, identity, consciousness, culture, you needed to root that in a sense of your journey as a people. Now we're being told in the public space that we are producing a generation, or maybe two generations, of young people who know very little about their history. And we are seeing the consequences of that being expressed in many areas. However, while CXC had commissioned a report under the chairmanship of Professor Cobley that recommended the return to mandatory history, we have had no movement on that front in many years. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, CXC had introduced a suite of remarkable future generation curriculum in the areas of technology, science, and they were celebrated in their conception. But in their implementation, we've had tremendous difficulty, and in the end, CXC had to retreat from the delivery of many of those programs that are 21st century oriented. The reason being, again, conflict. There are many schools in our community that do not have the teachers or the laboratories or the technology to participate in those contemporary, highly needed programs. Thus, we will have inequity. Those schools that are so resourced can deliver, but the majority of the schools cannot participate through a lack of capacity. So these conversations found themselves in the public domain, and thus a culture of finger-pointing started. The reason why I am so pleased with this kind of initiative is because for the first time, CXC is taking responsibility for everything, even when it's not within its specific remit. Because CXC is aware that having a sense of self-perception is only one side of the coin. There is public service on the other side. And a forum such as this one will bring everyone together. And that's the key, that's the future, to bring everyone together, all of our stakeholders, all interest groups, all participants, to sit down and talk these things through. They will be divisive, there will be differences, but we will internalize these conversations and find solutions that are acceptable to our community. I give but two examples of what is required to be done. And this kind of organizational response is a strategic response by CXC to say, listen, we don't have to be at odds with each other in the public domain. At 50 years, an organization has to be sufficiently matured to take responsibility for every critical observation, bring them indoors, negotiate issues, and find the resources. We all know who we are. We are a struggling post-colonial culture, struggling to find its way into the future. We know resources are scarce. And many of these debates are the result of the impact of scarce resources. Not scarce intellect, scarce financial resources to implement the ideal strategy. But we, in this format, can come together and with maximum intellectual maturity and responsibility, resolve these issues with critical discourses. So, colleagues, I welcome you. I look forward to many more of these types of fora, and I believe that herein lies a solution to how we should proceed in the future. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of the Caribbean Examinations Council, for his insightful comments. And we certainly recognize also that he's the Chancellor of the United Nations University, so please forgive me, sir, for not mentioning that earlier. We now move on to special remarks by a number of individuals who are here with us, carrying specific portfolio titles that are very relevant to both the conference and the ministerial forum. And I start by introducing none other than Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General for Human and Social Development of CARICOM. Ms. Drayton's role is one which requires her to oversee several functions in the Secretariat, but also across the community. Prior to her appointment, ASG Drayton headed UNFPA's sub-regional office for the Caribbean, served at the United Nations Development Program, was also assigned to the permanent mission of Guyana to the UN, political officer in the Commonwealth Secretariat, and was special advisor to the President of the UN General Assembly. ASG leads sustainable human development efforts and programs across the region, spearheading diplomacy, capacity building, and relationship excellence. So we welcome to the podium none other than Ms. Alison Drayton, Assistant Secretary General.
Thank you, Eduardo. I'm listening to Eduardo and I'm thinking, I must abandon the bio, because all it does is remind me that I am much older than I usually feel. So thank you for that very fulsome introduction, and I would like you all to immediately forget it. Let me say good afternoon. It is so thrilling to see a room full of people on one of my topics of particular interest, which is education and the state of education in the region, and the need to urgently transform it. So kudos to all of you. It was fascinating to listen to the remarks at the opening, and I look forward to some very important outcomes out of these couple of days. I wish to commend the Caribbean Examinations Council, the Ministry of Education Jamaica, and all regional partners who worked hard to convene this timely and forward-looking conference, and the Commonwealth of Learning for their support to these initiatives and to the meeting next week in Trinidad. The theme, Navigating the Digital Age, Rethinking Teaching, Learning, and Assessment, is not simply descriptive. It is a directive. It is a call to action. And today, I wish to frame my brief remarks as a charge to all of us gathered here. First, a charge to act with urgency and purpose. Colleagues, the digital age is not approaching. As many of the speakers have noted, it is already reshaping our societies, our economies, and our futures. My first charge, therefore, is to act with urgency. We cannot afford incremental adjustments. The pace of technological change demands bold, systemic transformation. Every delay risks widening inequities and leaving segments of our populations behind. And when you layer that in with the impact of COVID and the impact of the storms and hurricanes that challenge our region yearly, I cannot sufficiently emphasize the urgency of this. Let us strive to ensure, therefore, that this conference was not only an exchange of ideas, but a catalyst for decisive action. My second charge is for us to reimagine teaching. We must move beyond models rooted in the delivery of content and instead embrace approaches that cultivate critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving, keeping in mind Dr. Wesley's comments that we still have to graduate children that are literate in numeracy and literacy, because with that, they can teach themselves. They do not need us. Let us be frank. We must support our teachers to become facilitators, innovators, and leaders in the digital classroom. This requires a renewed commitment to teacher development, continuous, relevant, and deeply aligned with digital competencies and pedagogical innovation. We must ask ourselves, are we equipping our teachers for the classrooms of tomorrow or those of today? And actually, I don't think we should ask ourselves. I think we should ask the teachers and we should ask the students. We might get a very different response than what we get when we ask ourselves. My third charge is to transform learning itself. Learning must be flexible, inclusive, and responsive to the diverse realities of Caribbean learners. We are called upon to design systems that prioritize skills for life and work, skills that enable our citizens not only to participate in the digital economy, but in fact to shape it. At the same time, we must ensure that digital transformation strengthens rather than erodes Caribbean identity or values and or cultural grounding. A fourth charge is for us to work as a region. We must act collectively as a Caribbean community. No single country, institution, or agency can undertake the transformation alone. We must strengthen partnerships across ministries with the CXC, with teacher education institutions, with the private sector, and with development partners. Whenever I'm in a room with our ministers of education, I am so inspired by what they get from each other. We are one region, we pursue it in different ways, and you see people light up when they hear how their colleagues are tackling a pernicious problem. Let me say that the CARICOM Secretariat stands ready to support this effort, including through the advancement of a regional skills agenda for life and work, an agenda that must be shaped by your insights, your experiences, and your collective vision. A final charge, to exercise critical judgment in this digital age. This final charge is one of discernment. Exercise critical judgment in how we adopt technology, including artificial intelligence. We must guard against uncritical policy transfer, the unexamined importation of tools and models that do not reflect our realities. Not every innovation serves our values, or data governance standards, or our development priorities. So we must ask, whose knowledge are we building capacity or cultivating dependency? Let us be clear, the Caribbean must not be a passive consumer of imported technologies. We must be critical adapters and co-creators of solutions that reflect our context, safeguard our sovereignty, and serve our people. In closing, I anticipate that this conference will be remembered not only for the conversations that were had, but for the change ignited across Caribbean education systems, a change that is sorely needed. The responsibility now rests with all of us to act with urgency, think with discernment, and build systems that are resilient, inclusive, and distinctly Caribbean in character. Together, let us lead this transformation with purpose and with conviction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary General Drayton. Certainly there are three charges, and I believe all of us in this room would recognize the importance of acceding to that request to ensure that the region educational actors are all on board from a partnership perspective to work together as we achieve the common objectives of the region. Now we move on to other remarks by none other than the chair of the Council of Ministers of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and Minister of Education, Human Resource Planning, Vocational Training and National Excellence. The Honorable Octavia Alfred is a lifelong educator and former principal. Her illustrious and dedicated career has catered to improving educational standards and supporting youth development, not just in the island of Dominica, but across the OECS region. She's a champion for inclusive and quality education, ensuring that learners embrace skills and competencies for social impact. As minister, she leads reforms in skills training, teacher capacity building, and equitable access to quality education. None other than the formidable Octavia Alfred, Minister of Education.
Good afternoon, everybody. Education enthusiasts and everybody else. Education is your business. Education is everybody's business. And I'm thinking that's why we are all so excited about what went on here. High commendations to CXC and all those who played a part in ensuring this activity. And please allow me a little chance to say high commendation to my local CXC registrar, Miss Magali Celestine, who does a wonderful job on the island of Dominica. Thank you. One thing, they have no problem with me at home, because when they do it well, I tell them, and when they don't do it well, I tell them twice. I am here this afternoon to present a summary of what the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States has been doing to keep up and prepare for what is going on in the digital world. As for me, anything I get involved in is to help me sleep. I lose sleep. All education officers lose sleep. I lose sleep over the fact that when you announce there's no school tomorrow, you hear yay from the children. And teachers say yay in their hearts too. Nobody likes school. Parents do not like school. Teachers do not like school. Students do not like school. I lose sleep over that. I lose sleep over wondering what I must do to ensure that every child will grow up to be a happy, productive individual. So much talk about mental health because people are just not happy. I want my students to do well enough at school to grow up to be happy, productive individual. I lose sleep because after a holiday weekend, minister, we have no access to EMIS. More than 20 years, we've been served by a, let's call them a server, before I get myself in some trouble, by a server. We had a holiday weekend and we came back on the first day, and minister, we are 3 days late with our payment, and we have absolutely no access to EMIS. I said, what are you saying? Minister, so you mean we have no access to nothing about our students? Yes, minister. I said, what kinds of people do that? I lose sleep over that. I also lose sleep over the fact that we did so much work during COVID. Dominica was the only country who had all assessment. We had school in a box, school in a bag. Our teachers, if you want to know what school in a bag is, we can talk after. Our teachers did work. And we had online a lot of videos and tutorials and everything. And one company said to us, oh my, you'll have so many things. We are going to give you something called, whatever the company name is, Dominica. We say, yeah, so when we heard that, that was when we started working. And we put in more work. And when we were looking for our information, it was, you have to pay us to get this information. I lose sleep over that. So therefore, the OECS digital learning ecosystem, I'm not going to have to tell you about that. You're going to have to Google it and you will see everything there. This system is a technological initiative of the OECS. So we have 6 platforms. It has been built. We own it. We operate a complete digital education infrastructure serving teachers, students, parents, policymakers, and development partners across all member states. The OECS Learning Hub is one, where we target teachers and students and parents. We have harmonized the OECS curriculum. Not as if we haven't got some of our issues. But if a child leaves Dominica and goes to St. Lucia, you miss nothing except whatever happened while you were flying. You fall in grade 4 and you take it and run. And we ensure that everything is student-centered. In Dominica, all over the social media, videos from schools with students doing this, students doing that, students making farine, students making dumpling. And that, that makes me feel, at least when we say no school tomorrow, we might get a small year because students are beginning to enjoy school. It's available online and offline with structured lesson resources, interactive content. We have all materials aligned to regional harmonized curriculum standards. Parents can also access to see what their children are learning. We have so far 2,300 registered teachers, more than 13,000 resources shared from September. Also, the platform was developed entirely in-house by young innovators from the OECS. Program integrates curriculum access, analytics, training modules, AI tools, and certification tracking. It addresses training fatigue by replacing workshops with evidence-based self-directed modulars for professional development. Data remains within the OECS. Nobody blocking me off. So that's one thing I get a little sleep over, because the data remains within the OECS. There's no licensing fees or platform discontinuation. This is one of the OECS Commission's most significant technological advancements. We are looking forward to expanding to the lower forms at secondary schools, since secondary school teachers are finding this very helpful, especially with the slower students. AI in action. AI-powered search and content discovery is saving teachers time. 4 integrated AI lesson planners apps will generate lessons at differentiation levels. So you get 4 different lesson plans for whatever you ask, and you choose which one you want to use based on your students' ability. Over 15,000 lesson plans generated up to date. Real-time instruction guidance, activities, suggestions, curriculum link support. The system can process 280 requests per second, and 70 to 95% are answered instantly. The OECS Digital Library, you'll see that too, is a living replica of the global digital library, where we have 6,000 books that focus on early grade literacy and maths, and this was launched in September 2021. If you go there, you'll also see a studio platform for curriculum guidance for lower grades. We also have an iLearn platform, which provides content development and training. We have also a Yes I News, where students from the OECS can interact and put news and interview people, and so we call it Yes I. Jamaica, yes I? Yes I. And presently we are doing an OECS student census. We want to do it with all our students. So far we have done 67,000 students. We are at 87%. Now when we collect that data, that is going to tell us everything we need to know about our students, what they know, what they do not know, what they want to know, if they have a good place to sleep, if they have food to eat, if they have shoes on their feet. I just cannot imagine what we will do with that data when we get it. And when we are through, we are going to do our teachers. We also we want to know about you too, because if you're not well, how can you make them well? If you don't have it, how can you give it? We spoke a lot about what to do for students here. When we meet again, let's talk about what we're doing for teachers, because if they don't have it, they can't give it. So we also have an interactive statistical digest, where we target the ministries, education policy makers, and education planners. It's dynamic, it's publicly accessible, it's a platform that aggregates and visualizes education statistics across OECS member states. And we look at things like enrollment, teacher deployment, teacher qualification, examination results, or like now I may need somebody who is there underutilized in St. Vincent, and if I ask St. Vincent, might well just lend me that person for like 2 years, and I can lend you some. I could also, if I borrow from you, and you can also borrow from me. That's what we want. We're talking about integration, but we have to get serious, you know. So if Dominica is suffering and we need a person that St. Lucia has 5 of, why you can't just send a person over for 2 years? Set me up. It's not a competition. We also have what we call the MERL platform. The MERL platform targets education statistician, and we target OECS Commission, donors, project management. It's actually the monitoring, evaluation, research learning platform, which provides structured framework for tracking project outputs and milestones, performance indicators, ensuring that investment in digital education are measurable, reportable, and continuously improved based on evidence. We have a bad culture. We get our money, we do our program, money finished, program dead. We cannot continue so. When we have a program, we have to look out for the things that we can continue without money while we're looking for more money. Otherwise, we'll just be going round and round in circles. We also have the OECS H5P content creator, where teachers who are creative can create content and they put them on. So all like now, we have something what somebody did on the Kalinago, what do you call it now? Model village. So he's not just talking about it. Now you can go there, the teacher can pull it out. If you are living in a certain part of Dominica, we can take the journey. We are leaving our school and we are going to pass north to Vekas. This is Vekas children. And just after we pass Vekas, we have Kalibishi. And the children can take an entire tour to the Kalinago model village without even leaving their class. Clap for that now. So, the hope is that we will use data. We are now looking to do our own EMIS, where we will use data systems already operating in some countries, so we can have an OECS education management information system. And we have undertaken the assessment, developed guidelines for selections of EMIS. We have also drafted open data standards. Now, all of this was done under the OECS Program for Education Advancement and Relevant Learning, the OECS PEARL, under the Global Partnership for Education. The work continues since we are already out of time. We have to consider ourselves out of time. The thing leaving us already, so we have to catch up. So I encourage us to get busy. And let's do this thing together. It's really not about you, it's not about me, because so many people in this room are over 50. It's about the children. It's about the children. So let's do that together. And a lot of this truly depends on our young, passionate minds. It does not depend on, my grandbaby is 8. He says, Granny, you do not know that? Oh my God, Granny, you don't know that? How you become the Minister of Education? 8 years. So if we think sitting in this room, it's about us, we need to get some young, innovative, passionate people to work on that thing for us. Yes, the OECS has collaborated with Teachers Training College, because we have to go to the college now and say we have to, okay, we agree about Piaget and the rest of them boys, but it's the next thing now. So we have to speak to the Teachers College, and we have done that in some places. But the truth is, many of us in this room, we don't even feel the thing. We're talking, you know. If you put a 14-year-old by us, then we will know how deficient some of us are. The truth is, many teachers do not feel the vibes and they don't have the passion. It is the youth that will really lead on this. And if we do not track them, if we do not take them along, they will either drag us along or they will ignore us. So both of these are bad. Let's choose the better of the two. Let's drag along with them, because otherwise they will ignore us. So I encourage us to do this together, not just OECS, CARICOM, CXC, UE, but all of us as educators. Let us do this thing together. Young and excited teachers, have mercy on your old-time principal and teachers. And old-time principal and teachers, I need to know, old-time principals and teachers, back off a while and give the young teachers a chance. You can clap because I know some old-time principals, they like to hold it down. But you too, have mercy on them. And even those psychosocial things matter on how fast or how slow we will move. It's not a matter of if who's smarter, who have the degree. This is a psychosocial issue for people who are accustomed of holding on and not letting go, and for those who want to do, but they're prevented from doing. So we have to also address that. What this has done, our work, is the way in which this thing has brought the OECS teachers together. There were people who wanted to come to Dominica for Creole Festival. That's how they got a room, because teachers are always talking to each other, sharing lesson plans, sharing units, and they're becoming friends. I encourage us, as I close, let us create an enabling environment that all our students will be happy to be at school, that all our students can experience success, and that all our students can grow up and be happy, productive adults, despite their aptitudes, their limitations, or their differences, because every child can learn, every child can succeed, every child is a pearl. Treasure that pearl. They are depending on us. God bless you. Jesus loves you and I love you too. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. I think you've heard, for those of you who have not had the experience of hearing the Honorable Octavia Alfred, you certainly have had that opportunity. She's delighted us with her presentation, injected with her usual passion, finesse, and of course her humor, which we all look forward to as she presented on the OECS digital education system. But Minister, we want something for you, Minister. We would love for you to sleep a little bit more. Yeah? So that's something we want for you. All right. So we're moving on with our program. And at this juncture, I would like to invite Professor Peter Scott, President of the Commonwealth of Learning, to speak. Professor Peter Scott is the 5th President and Chief Executive Officer of the Commonwealth of Learning. He was a researcher and lecturer at the University of Sheffield, my alma mater, and at the Open University, and worked in the UK for decades. He directed a UK institute specializing in artificial intelligence in education. He was Pro-Vice Chancellor at the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia, and was the president of Athabasca University, Canada, before joining this role that he's now in. As president of COL, he's a passionate servant and transformation leader who champions sustainable education partnerships and relationships among the Commonwealth governments and institutions for innovative education. So it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Professor Peter Scott.
Distinguished ministers, permanent secretaries, colleagues from CXC, CARICOM, partner institutions, and all of the friends in this room that I've had the delight to make over these last few days. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at the close of this regional gathering. COL is delighted to join you and to bring a welcome from the wider Commonwealth. As you've heard, I'm a lifelong academic who's pretending to be a diplomat. I currently am the president of an intergovernmental organization which is focused on learning innovation for the 56 member nations of the Commonwealth, which includes many in this room. My organization has been working for about the last 40 years in this region and across the world, so you know it very well. But I've only been the leader of the organization for the last couple of years, and I've had a long history in academia. So diplomacy is a strange word for me. My only role here, really, is to bring the wider welcome from that Commonwealth. So instead of repeating all of the wonderful things that have already been said, which I completely agree with, by the way, it's wonderful to hear all of that, I'll tell you a bit about my last few weeks to put some of that into context. So 4 weeks ago, I was in Delhi, India at the Global AI Summit. AI is important. You get that. Keep your data sovereign, take control of the technology, and make sure that Minister Alfred comes with you on that trip, because I now realize that she should have gone and I should have stayed in Vancouver, because that you understand that is critically important to me. 3 weeks ago, following that trip, I was in the Pacific, spending the whole week working through with all of the Pacific Islands, Commonwealth nations, the next 10 years of innovation for those small island states. We have a plan. It's a good one. I'm very pleased with it. We're going to be working hard on making sure that small island nations are strong. 2 weeks ago, I was back in Vancouver at a headquarters ironing this shirt. Last week, I was in London. The Commonwealth foreign ministers are gathering, asking very many difficult questions about our fractured multilateral world and trying very hard to deal with some of the questions and challenges they currently face. This week, in the Caribbean, I was hearing your voices and hearing that you in this room and your learners are the answer to all of those questions. My next 2 days will be working with the Commonwealth Caribbean governments on your plans for the next 10 years, and if there's anything that my organization can do to help. As you've heard already, next week I'm looking forward to Trinidad, where we will host a regional consultation on micro-credentials. I am very keen on the power of very small things, and I don't need to repeat that because you've heard it again and again over these last few days, that we can use small things to transform the lives of our people. Whether it is giving the right change in a gas station, or whether it is transforming the lives of any level of education, we will be working with CXC, CARICOM, and friends across the Caribbean on a sub-framework for micro-credentials that will fit into flexible learning pathways, credit mobility, and Commonwealth-wide recognition. Over these last few days, we have heard very clearly the theme of the conference, navigating the digital age. We've considered it in depth, and we've looked very hard at mathematics. We've heard that across the Caribbean, stakeholders don't need to ask about digital change, they are living it. But the real question is how quickly, how equitably, and how future-facing that transformation is going to be. And as I've already indicated, all of these questions are being addressed by your friends across the world, particularly the Commonwealth friends of Africa, Asia, the islands of the Pacific, and of course the Indian Ocean. COL has the role to bring your answers to all of those people and to bring some of their solutions back to you. It's not about technology, it's a question of sharing educational purpose, sharing trust and policy, and transforming disadvantage. We believe the next task before this region, as with the rest of the world, is clear. We must move from digital access to digital advantage. Don't get me wrong, access absolutely matters, connectivity matters, devices matter, but these things alone have never been enough. Much of our world does not have these things, and even when they do, they don't automatically transform us. But they can if we're thoughtful. However, as you know very well, All across our planet, teachers and learners are stressed, already facing chronic problems, inequity, and many more, and yet asked to do more and more in an increasingly complex world. Digital advantage means using the technology with purpose to change the relationship of teachers and learners, to change the very nature of education. It means improving equitable learning by seriously imagining how they could work together differently over the long term, and indeed, the long term is getting closer every single day. It's nearly upon us. I really want to thank CXC for this event, who have framed this as a moment to address the opportunities and challenges of digitally transforming education across the Caribbean. CXC has critically placed attention on digitalization, literacy, numeracy, and regional collaboration. And for us, collaboration and sharing is the key to everything. Our role with CXC is exploring the options to change learning through open public goods, online, clear policy innovation, and digital inclusion. When you leave here, the work continues. I think that for the Caribbean, the digital age should be seen as a positive disruption, providing an opportunity to reshape education and to permanently change it in a positive way through partnership, public goods, and sharing. The Commonwealth proudly gives voice to small states as a key feature of its purpose. Small is powerful. We stand ready to work with you in the pride and the spirit of the Caribbean to teach the rest of the world, to dance to the CARICOM song, and to be truly grateful for a belly breathing out and in. Please, ministers, let the foreign ministers be worried. Let them lose sleep. Everyone in this room will ensure that education ministers are excited. Working with you all over the next few years will be truly exciting, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Scott, for your reassuring words that really echo some of the sentiments that have been expressed, not just in this past few days, but certainly in the Caribbean, as we stand ready also to partner with the Commonwealth and certainly with COL as we move forward. And I thank you for saying to us that we're on the right track. We really appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the esteemed RD Drummers, a venerable club with a legacy spanning over 30 years. It has generated a multitude of prestigious accolades and distinctions. Renowned for their exceptional craftsmanship, the club has established a distinguished record for creating pieces that exude a profound and resounding energy, resonating deeply with those who experience them. Last year, the club received the following awards from the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission Festival of the Performing Arts Competition: 2 bronze, 2 silver, and 12 gold medals. And ladies and gentlemen, 11 national titles. Let's give them a round of applause. So as the RD drummers come to the podium or come to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, please give them an opportunity to set up as they prepare, but we certainly will be delighted by them in a few moments. Welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, none other than the esteemed RD drummers. I know you can do better than that, ladies and gentlemen. The RD drummers are actually just up the road here at Arden High School. Come on, let's hear it for them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. I almost said the Honorable Wayne Wesley, Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of CXC. Dr. Wayne Wesley, a pioneering, visionary, and transformational leader, is the Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Examinations Council, where he's advancing the organization's role as the region's premier assessment body for making strategic regional educational impact. He navigates and builds critical bridges and strategies with regional and international bodies and partners as CXC makes this strategic impact in the region and the global arena. Dr. Wesley also contributes his expertise on several regional and international and governance bodies, including the Caribbean Community Administrative Tribunal and the Board of Trustees of the International Association for Educational Assessment. Dr. Wesley continues to be a champion for CXC as we engage in our strategic thrust as a regional enterprise in the digital assessment arena. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Wesley will come and then he will introduce the keynote speaker for today. Welcome, Dr. Wesley.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali. I shall not be long because I really want to hear what our guest speaker has to say this afternoon. And now I realize that when I'm speaking, I have to control the expression on my face a little more. Because my passion seemed to come out a lot on Monday, much to my chairman's amusement. He said, you cannot be making up your face and clapping your hands at the same time. Your face already says it. You know, while I notice he skillfully avoided the wide ball which was thrown at him about the West Indies cricket, but we'll leave that at another time. But ladies and gentlemen, it is certainly a wonderful privilege to have hosted this conference. To God be the glory. Great things he has done. And I started out by saying that we should be in a perpetual, we should remain in a perpetual state of transformation, given where we want to go as a region and to be agile enough to respond to the needs of our learners. So as we embrace this call for change, yes, it will galvanize support, it will drive progress, and it is how we go about implementing that will ensure that no one is left behind. It therefore means that as we do this, we have to consciously think about balancing the urgency, the fierce urgency of now with sensitivity, understanding how it impacts others as we seek to make this transformation. And once we do that, we would create an environment within which transformation will allow to foster being bold and inclusive. That transformation is needed now. But I stand to introduce the Honorable Sonia Parag, Minister of Education of Guyana, is an attorney at law and parliamentarian committed to advancing national development through education. She previously served as Minister of Public Service and Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. She also serves as the chair of the CARICOM Council of Human and Social Development, COSAD, guiding regional collaboration on education and social development. As minister, she works to strengthen Guyana's education system and expand access to quality learning opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the Honorable Sonia Farrar.
I was about to say, I always seem to have this kind of luck. Good evening to everyone. I'd like to first of all recognize all of our colleague ministers of education from the Caribbean, as well as the chairman of the renowned Sir Beckles, the chairman of the Caribbean Examination Council, the registrar, Mr. Wesley, who of course I have known from the time I've gotten into the education sector. And from since then, from the first message on to the last message I received just coming here, he has been a constant on my chat. As well as, of course, SG of COSAD, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education for Jamaica, and my newly found friend, the Honorable Minister of Education of Jamaica from last evening, for remote communities across our region, including villages such as Aishalton, where I'm from in Guyana. That's in the deep south of Guyana in Region 9. We have 10 administrative regions, and it is the one region that is closest to Brazil. The transformation we speak of here must be one that every child experiences, regardless of their geography, and I believe this has to be our undeterrable vision as we enthusiastically seek to digitize our region. Let me express how also deeply humbled I am to serve as the chairperson of the Council for Human and Social Development. In that capacity, I am acutely aware that education does not stand alone. It sits alongside health, labor, youth development, culture, and the broader conditions that shape how our people live and work. COSAD carries a clear mandate to promote the development of education and training across the community, to improve the living and working conditions of our people, to advance opportunities for youth and women, and to support the cultural and social fabric of our region. I remain fully committed to working with my ministerial colleagues to strengthen coordination across these areas, particularly as we confront the evolving demands being placed on our education system. This afternoon alone, having been able and having had the opportunity, the great opportunity to be in a room, literally, with my colleague ministers from the region and having our shared experiences be discussed, it was so not only enlightening, but relieving for me, because I realized that we have so much in common in our different territories. And education is the one thing that we believe, speaking to everyone there, that we believe can promote integration more than everything else. Yesterday, well, as the Minister of Education, I'm also very proud. I am also a proud product of CXC. I stand here as someone who has moved through, and I believe very much like so many of you in the room, I stand here as someone who has moved through the very system we are now called upon to re-examine. That is why I consider it essential that we work closely with the Caribbean Examinations Council to ensure that as we enter this new era of unprecedented growth, in virtual technologies, our systems of teaching, learning, and assessment remain aligned, relevant, and fit for purpose. Yesterday, the distinguished registrar and CEO of CXC, Dr. Wesley, reminded us of something both simple and profound: that learning must be engaging, meaningful, and responsive to the learner, or as he put it, learning must be fun. And I could not agree more. We must accept that our students today are not the students we once were. That is a fact. That's a fact. The that we once were. The traditional methods that shaped our own education have, in many instances, been overtaken by new realities. We gather at a moment when the pace of change in education is no longer gradual, but accelerated, and in many respects, unforgiving. The systems we inherited, the methods we refined, and the assessments we relied upon are now being tested by forces that do not wait for policy cycles or institutional comfort. In the age of social media, change can be as quick as a single post. And as we have seen it all from our different sectors and our different areas of professionalism, that posting something on social media is no longer a last resort. It's a first option. It's a first option. Across our Caribbean, classrooms are no longer defined by four walls. Knowledge is no longer scarce, and the role of the teacher, the student, and indeed the examination system itself is being reshaped in real time. The question before us, therefore, is not whether change is coming, it is whether we as a region are prepared to shape it. Our learners, particularly those of Generation Alpha, are growing up in an environment fundamentally different from our own. They are immersed in technology from the earliest stages of life. They are highly visual, increasingly independent, and accustomed to accessing information on demand. And if any one of us, and probably all of us, if not all of us, we are parents or parent to teenagers, we are parents to those who are in primary school, and we know that when they come home and they use their phones, or if we are using our phones and we don't know, or iPads, and we don't know how to get to a page, for example, or how to get to something specific, they'll know about it. They will know about it. So the roles are reversed. We have to go 2 or 10 steps backwards to now learn what they have been born into. Many of them are already engaging with the digital platforms as primary sources of learning. But we must be careful not to mistake access for understanding. Connectivity without competence is merely noise. Our responsibility, therefore, remains clear, and it is my unwavering belief that if we must continue to anchor our education systems in the foundational pillars of literacy and numeracy, we must do that. If a child cannot read with comprehension, then an e-library offers little value. And if a student cannot reason with numbers, then the promise of coding, data analysis, and digital innovation becomes inaccessible. As such, digitalization must not distract us from these fundamentals. It must strengthen them. It must promote them. It must help us realize the utopia where our Caribbean population is 100% literate and numerate. So in Guyana, what we're doing now in terms of literacy and numeracy, and with literacy specifically, we have an entire literacy unit at the Ministry of Education that was established some time ago, doing some great work. But in 2026, we are introducing the grades 2 and grades 4 literacy assessment in schools so that our students by grade 4 will know to read. So they're exiting the primary schools. They're exiting the primary schools literate, because I've been told, and I've sat with SG for COSAD, and I agreed with her then, and I still do now, that we are producing functional illiterates. And so we have to work backwards to catch up. We have to work, or if you want to put it this way, we have to work ahead of the curve to get back. And so this is one thing that we're doing. In 2027, we will be introducing the numeracy assessment as well in schools. And another thing that I find quite novel is, and the reason that we haven't publicized it is because those individuals who are involved have asked us not to. And I guess because there is a stigma they feel attached to it in their communities. We have actually set up literacy tents in our communities for parents, so that they will be able to help their children with their homework when they go home. Because all of us know that when they exit school at the end of the day and they come home, you, the parent, you still have to give that support. And what we find is that support comes in all forms, and you may very well be that person who is behind the success of that child merely by giving them the support of staying up with them late at night, by providing whatever meals they want. If they want a warm cup of milk, that's all you can give, then you do give it. It's that support. But right now, we want to empower them even further than that. We want them to be able to be actively involved in their children's development from the point of view of the academics. So making them literate, of course, that's not only for the student and their children, it is also for their own development. Because when they can do that, now you give them the opportunity or that second chance to go back and use what we call our GROW program to now write their own exit secondary examinations. It's a certification that we have that you can go if you haven't had the chance to finish CXC, or you did and you didn't pass CXC. We have a GROW program that allows you that second chance in life to go back, write that, and you can exit with something that is equivalent to that and be able to move on to a degree or whatever you want to do, go into the workforce. So those are things that are happening. But I have placed my speech into 3 different issues. So issue 1 is incorporating AI. As we consider the digital age, it is impossible to ignore the growing presence of artificial intelligence within our education system. AI is no longer a distant concept. It is already in the hands of our students. It is shaping their research, how they write, how they engage with information, and increasingly, how they interact with each other. We therefore cannot afford to approach this moment with either fear or denial. AI is a powerful tool. It has the capacity to support personalized learning, to provide immediate feedback, to assist teachers in lesson preparation, and to make complex ideas more accessible to students at different levels of ability. It can also create more inclusive learning environments for students with special education needs, and it can reduce administrative burdens on teachers, allowing them to focus on what matters most, the development of the child. But alongside these opportunities, there are real and pressing concerns. Across our region, we're already seeing the misuse of these technologies. Students are using AI to generate false content, including manipulated images and messages, which are then circulated among their peers and in some instances directed at teachers. This has contributed to a troubling rise in both virtual and physical forms of bullying within our schools. We are also confronted with issues of academic integrity, where students may rely on AI tools to complete assignments without genuine engagement with the material. There are concerns about data privacy, the potential for bias within algorithms, and the risk of students accepting information uncritically without the skills to question or verify it. Every single adult in this room has had those fears. Every single adult, upon AI being introduced into our nations, we've all had those questions. We've all had those fears. At the same time, many of our educators remain on the margins of this transformation. In several instances, students are far more familiar with the tools than the teachers who are expected to guide them. That imbalance cannot persist. We have seen this before when cellular phones first entered our schools. There was widespread concern about distraction and misuse. Over time, we recognized that the solution was not prohibition, but integration with clear boundaries and purpose. The same principle must now guide us. Our task is to ensure that AI is introduced into our education system in a way that is responsible, structured, and grounded in clear ethical standards. This morning, I was privileged enough to sit in on a discussion that was solely on transforming with AI and the AI checkers, if you want to call it that, and how we can be measured in the way we use AI. And I think it was quite an interesting conversation to have. They must understand the consequences of the misuse, the importance of authenticity in their work, and the responsibility that comes with access to powerful technology. At the same time, we must invest in our teachers. They must be equipped, trained, and supported to understand these tools, to integrate them with appropriate and to maintain where appropriate, and to maintain the human connection that remains in the heart of education. AI must assist the teacher. It must not replace the teacher. As a region, we must therefore move toward clear frameworks for the responsible integration of AI in education. Frameworks that address ethics, data protection, academic integrity, child safety, while still allowing for innovation and growth. It is a matter of safeguarding our students, preserving the integrity of our systems, and ensuring the use of these tools aligns with the values that we hold as Caribbean societies. Now, issue 2, equity and access. As we speak of innovation, digital learning, and reform, we must be careful not to pretend that the Caribbean begins from a level field. We do not. We are a region of immense brilliance, but also of varied realities. We carry different histories, different socioeconomic conditions, and different geographical challenges. There are students in well-connected urban centers who can access information at the click of a button. And there are others in remote and rural communities for whom connectivity remains inconsistent. Devices remain limited, and opportunity still depends too heavily on circumstances. That is why, as we consider the future of teaching, learning, and assessment, we must be honest with ourselves. Access alone is not equity. And if I stand here, I can say that I am repeating already what Dr. Beckel stood here and said. It is one thing to make a tool available. It is another thing entirely to ensure that every learner has a fair chance to benefit from it. Equity requires us to recognize difference, to understand need, and to provide support in a way that allows every student, not just the most advantaged, to succeed. This is where I wish to offer a respectful challenge to CXC, and indeed to all of us gathered here as policymakers and regional leaders. If we are to rethink education for the digital age, we cannot pursue sudden, heavy-handed change that leaves our teachers and students feeling pressured, unprepared, or excluded. Reform that is not understood will be resisted. Reform that is not grounded in consultation will struggle to take root. And reform that does not account for the realities of our region may very well deepen the very inequalities we claim to be addressing. There must be groundwork, and there must be consultation. There must be a genuine meeting of minds among all stakeholders, especially the educators of this region, so that there is not only compliance, but buy-in, not only adjustment, but appreciation. And I stick a pin here, because having heard all that we have discussed in the last 2 days, my team, the other team, the teams from the other Caribbean territories, ministers themselves, PSs, CEOs, all who have been in this room, educators, teachers who have been in this room. And I'm really happy to hear that students will be a part of the next conference. I think that is crucial. So thank you, VC, for stating that already. I'm going to take a little bit of credit on my behalf. But I stick a pin here to say that the discussions that we are having, I would like to see in another 5 years, perhaps, if I'm not the Minister of Education, but my child is at the stage of writing the CSEC exams, or 10 years from now, when another generation is coming up, they will say, because we sat in this room today, and we not only discussed, but we put actions to words, and they are now benefiting from those actions. I would love to see that picture that we took out as a group posted to say that this started in this room, about what we can do to bridge that educational gap that we have. And so this was actually placed in our manifesto leading up to elections without foreseeing that we would be faced with the worst pandemic that we've ever had. Recognizing the geographical barriers that have long limited access to tertiary education, the government of Guyana partnered with institutions across the world. To date, we have 26 universities from around the world on that program. And since its launch, so here is what we promised our people, that over the period of 5 years, we will get 20,000 Guyanese not only awarded, but graduating from various programs, different fields, at different levels. But I suppose the divide was wider than we thought, because by year 3, we had exceeded that target of 20,000 Guyanese. To date, we have more than 54,000 Guyanese on that program, on those programs. And they have been either awarded or they have graduated. Its flexible delivery model has also allowed some learners to access materials asynchronously, including in contexts where reliable internet access remains a challenge. That matters. It matters because equity is not an abstract principle. It is a teacher in a distant community being able to pursue an advanced degree without abandoning that community. It is a student who once saw higher education as geographically out of reach and now being able to access it with dignity. It is a recognition that talent exists everywhere, even where infrastructure does not. And that is the mindset we need across this region. We cannot ignore the challenges of the Caribbean. We cannot borrow models uncritically. We cannot design systems only for the easiest environments in which to implement them. We must build for the full Caribbean reality. Every person here who have spoken from a different experience in the Caribbean. For the large states and the small ones, for the city school and the hinterland schools. Globally, the digital divide remains stark. UNESCO reported in 2025 that 2.6 billion people still lacked internet access, with 1.8 billion of them living in rural areas, and that large shares of schools at primary and secondary level remain unconnected. That reminder is important because it tells us that equity in digital education is not achieved simply by declaring a vision. It is achieved by designing systems that respond to the realities. And issue 3, which is my final issue, assessment reform. This brings me now to, sorry, I think I had more than that. But this brings me to a very critical component of CXC, assessment reform. Truly, if we are to rethink teaching and learning, then we must also be prepared to rethink assessment. For too long, systems have relied heavily on outputs that are now easily reproduced by AI. Essays, structured responses, and even problem-solving tasks. We must now ask a more fundamental question. What is truly worth measuring? When a machine can generate an answer, the value shifts from the answer itself to the thinking behind it. This moment presents us not only with a challenge, but with an opportunity to realign assessment with what genuine learning requires. We must move beyond rewarding memorization and the formula responses and place greater emphasis on critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, and ethical reasoning. Why? Why must we do that? Because the entire Caribbean is going to be left behind. We are going to be left behind. Generations will be left behind. And the very thing that we were pushing for all along, to ensure that our students are globally competitive will be lost. Will be lost. This means assessment must begin to capture how students think, not just what they produce. This means placing greater value on process. How a student arrives at a conclusion, how they question information, how they refine their ideas over time. It means creating space for dialogue, for defense of reasoning, for collaboration, and for reflection. We must also recognize the attempts to simply detect or prevent the use of AI. We must also recognize that attempts to simply detect or prevent the use of AI will not resolve the issue. That approach is unlikely to keep pace with the technology. Instead, we must design assessments that require students to engage with knowledge in ways that cannot be easily outsourced. That may include tasks that are grounded in local context, that require students to apply concepts to their own communities, or that demand real-time explanations and justifications. Today, there is never a conversation in education anywhere that AI isn't involved in. That AI isn't involved, whether it's your fear or whether how AI can advance and enhance education. I do have, outside of the assessment reform, and my third issue, a fourth issue, and one that I want to formally introduce to all of you sitting here. In December and it's called Digital Transformation in Practice, the Guyana Experience. And this is why I'll just ask you for just a bit more time. I know what it feels like to sit down and listen to a long speech, so I do offer you my sympathies, but hear me out on this. In December of 2005, as a matter of fact, in September of 2005, we went to another elections. And in that manifesto, our president committed to the nation that he will transform or digitize the education sector. And one of the things that he wanted to do was to ensure that we establish a digital school. So in December, just a week prior to his 100 days in office, we launched the Guyana Digital School. It is a standalone school, but at the moment, at any point in time, it is also a place where students can go for reinforcement of the knowledge that they're being taught in the classroom. But I'll tell you a little bit more about it. This platform delivers live interactive classes aligned with the CXC framework, supported by digital tools that allow for personalized learning and continuous engagement. The digital school was not only established for Guyanese, it was also established for the wider CARICOM region. So all Caribbean countries who are, and they are writing CXC, because not all of them, or not all in this area will be writing CXC. All of those territories that are writing CXC or CSEC as their secondary exit exams, they're all welcome to be on the Guyana Digital School free of cost to those territories. Free of cost to those territories. At the launch, we did have the honor of Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, speaking, and we also had the Prime Minister of Grenada speaking. Grenada, Belize, St. Kitts, Barbados, they're all on the digital school as well. And the digital school, fully funded by the government of Guyana, allows us right now to have access to grades 10 and 11 content. In 3 weeks, we will be able to have the content for grades 7 to 9. And in the months to come, we will have the entire primary being transitioned, well, not transitioned, but being on the Guyana Digital School. So all of that is made available to all our sister territories in the Caribbean, all of it. And I will share with, and I'll take the opportunity at this forum to share the QR code in which all you have to do is scan that, and it's a one-pager that you have to fill up to be on it. What we did to ensure that our students were on it, we went into every single school, and there are 1,095 schools in Guyana, with a number of them being secondary schools, of course. We went into every single school. I want to thank my team who are here because they were part of the team that went into those schools, sat with those grade 10 and 11 students, and registered them for these 13 subjects that are on right now, including mathematics and English. And they are being taught by teachers outside of the territory. But here is what. Having been faced with a pandemic, all of us know, we all know that we suffered learning loss, not only in the Caribbean, but globally. We also know that we had to very, very quickly find a way to transition to online classes and wrap our heads around it. Whether we weren't given time, whether we understood it, we had to understand it at that point in time. I know there were many days, at that time I wasn't a minister, and I'd go home during the lunch hour just to check on my son to see how he was adapting to that. But I'd find him lying across in several chairs. If you've had this experience, the computer is on, the teacher is teaching, and he's there listening, you know. But eventually, the teacher started to say, come online, let me see what you look like. You can no longer put on just your T-shirt, or you have to be dressed for school, and you have to transition. And in the same way, we thought, look, instead of always having to find a short-term fix or a temporary fix, why not make this permanent? Because the entire world is moving. The entire world is digitizing. Why not make this permanent? So the digital school was born out of that. And so for all of our territories in the Caribbean that suffers in one way or the other from some disaster that, you know, potentially puts students at risk, and the entire learning process can be disrupted, we have to have something in place that gives that reassurance, that allows the process to continue and to allow our students to benefit with little to no risk. So the Guyana Digital School was born out of that. But I'm telling you that my team went in there, and together with the other Caribbean territories, we now have more than 27,000 students on that platform. And I'm encouraging you to use it because, one, there is no cost to you. And two, if you really want your students to improve and you want them to have everything, every resource possible to make them successful, then I'll encourage you to sign on to the Guyana Digital School. It is also something the president would have put to CARICOM when he was chairing, and so I think that would have been known at the time. But beyond that, what else are we doing? So it's a big deal for Guyana, and while the digital school will serve not secondary students, it is not confined to only secondary students. I was just telling Mr. Wesley just today that we are also working with the Guyana Police Force to transition our driver's theory onto the digital school and remove it completely from the hands of individuals, making sure that we have a digitized system and an accountable system, and also introducing it now into the secondary school system. So when you're finished writing CSEC, between CSEC and end of term, you will be writing that, in those short weeks, you will be writing your driver's theory and exiting secondary with your certification, which I think is wonderful. Maths intervention. Mathematics has been a challenge for the Caribbean students. We all know this. Every minister who has been in that sector knows this. CXC knows this. And I am proud to say, though, that Guyana has led the way. Last year, they topped the Caribbean in CXC. And I'm very pleased to say that this year we're working towards defending our title. Working towards defending our title. And should we defend our title and get that title, that we will be looking forward to hosting this conference, perhaps the next go-around in Guyana. But mathematics has been a challenge, that's no doubt. But here are some of the things that we employed, measures that we employed. We introduced the Maths Intervention Program. The Maths Intervention Program was to get all of the maths teachers and retired maths teachers and so on from around the country, bring them together in one room and say, hey, let's put our heads together, and you are going to become maths monitors in the schools that we see that we have the lowest results. So we are targeting moving 0% to how many ever percent, etc. So we moved from last September to December from 51 to 84 maths monitors in different schools. We have also employed and made sure that we place tents, maths tents, into communities, into those remote communities. And in those maths tents, you have the maths teachers bringing together those students of that community and working with them. This is besides the school system. This is besides the four walls. This is also, we also took that maths intervention program online so we can be able to bridge the gap in the hinterland and rural areas. So in terms of what we've been doing with mathematics, it's been wonderful, and we are hoping to see the results. Every single assistant chief education officer in the Ministry of Education has had the task now of adopting a school. Adopting a school so that they will be able to have oversight over that school, and specifically with mathematics. Engaging and ensuring that the children and students are taught that. Because here's what, our Caribbean region is a beautiful region. Our children are beautiful children, and we must be able to give them the best of everything. So in addition to that, we have provided school feeding. We have a school feeding program. We have a cash grant program. That's to ensure that they come to school. That's to ensure that they're fed at school. That's to ensure that they can be successful in life. So I want to conclude on this. All our children are beautiful. The Caribbean region is beautiful. Our children are curious, they're capable, and they're full of promise. It is therefore our duty to ensure that the systems we build around them are worthy of that promise. Collectively, the Caribbean education space is a powerful one, and it must be strengthened not by wishes, but by clear intention, thoughtful reform, and sustained collaboration. As we leave this conference or this forum, let us not allow these discussions to remain, like I said, within these walls. Let us carry them into our ministries, our classrooms, and our policies, and let us move forward with the courage to reform what no longer serves us, the discipline to protect what we must remain, and the wisdom to place our teachers and our learners at the center of it all. I once again sympathize with you because you've been here a while, but I thank you at the same time for your attention and, more importantly, your continued commitment to the advancement of education across our region. I said this already. I guess I wrote it down last night while I had to think about you sitting here listening to my speech, but for your patience. And I am very mindful that ministers, being political creatures themselves, are often told to be brief, but there is never a time that I've known of that a politician can ever be brief. That they can ever be brief. But I thank you so much for your attention. I want to commend CXC for this very important conference. I hope it continues, and I do hope that as it continues, that it grows. And strength by strength, yes? Strength by strength. I commend you not only because you have a room full of educators, ministers included, but because it is the right time for us to have that right conversation about how we're transforming. But like I said, when we all leave here, let it not just be notes on a computer. Ironically, I'm reading here, but I should have brought my iPad, right? Digital, navigating the digital age. But I want to say to all of you, when we come back here, or wherever we go, wherever we will be in the next conference, let that conference be the next step forward. Let this step, Guyana welcomes you. And you know, I want to say thank you to Jamaica. It has been such a warm and wonderful experience. All my colleague ministers, who I now realize that ministers are not robotic like everybody thinks they are, they're human beings. And we all have shared experience in common, and a lot of things in common. A lot of things in common. But I want to say, keep up the good work. I always believe in listening, learning, and applying what we've learned and put that into, of course, reality and action. And that can only be done when you do have forums like these and you do sit at one table. Not the virtual thing, as much as we're moving digitally, sometimes it's better to talk in person. So it's a great initiative, and I do hope that the next time we come back, we will say that we have implemented X, Y, and Z in every single territory. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the Honorable Sonia Parag, Minister of Education, Guyana, and the Chair for Education, COSOD. And she's challenged us in many respects. And there are 4 things she said, or she spoke of. That is for us to really embrace AI, but responsibly. For us to look at the digital divide from a position of equitable treatment and to ensure social justice for all. To ensure that we have assessment reforms that take into account the real nuances that students face within the assessment space, and to obviously look to the Guyana Digital School as a model of excellence for Caribbean access to learning. And so we want to thank her for her presentation today, and we wish Guyana all the best as you continue to lead the Ministry of Education and the country in the area of education. So I would just like to ask for your indulgence, as we have a little extended time, to proceed with just the conclusion of this ceremony. As we bring the curtain down on the conference, I wish to congratulate all presenters over the last 3 days. I wish to also acknowledge your excellent presentations made, and wish to say that on behalf of the CXC Journal for Educational Assessment Editorial Committee, we look forward to receiving your manuscripts in the next few days. Ladies and gentlemen, displayed on the screen, the journal information can be found on CXC's website at https://www. The wider world to access. So now, ladies and gentlemen, and to all our delegates for the Ministerial Forum, we do recall that we have another full day tomorrow, well, relatively full day, so we look forward to seeing you there at 9 a.m. sharp at the Port Antonio Suite. And on behalf of the Chairman and the Board of Governors of CXC, I declare the CXC 2026 Ministerial Forum, where education policymakers speak on digitalization, literacy, and numeracy, formally opened, and so we will see those of you who are to be there tomorrow. At this juncture, please allow me to introduce the lady who will really bring the curtain down for this event, none other than Mrs. Cherie Deslandes. Mrs. Deslandes is the Director of Corporate Services at CXC. She has oversight of strategy, financial, procurement, human resources, and office management, ensuring that CXC is an organization par excellence. So please welcome Mrs. Deslandes.
Without my glasses. Oh. Honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would describe our experience this week in Kingston, Jamaica with one word, and that word is confluence. It is a word that speaks to the meeting of rivers, distinct, purposeful streams that when they come together form something far more powerful than any one stream can carry. Now, over the past 3 days, that is precisely what we witnessed here in Kingston. The streams of policy, pedagogy, and practice have converged. The voices of ministers of government, educators, academic researchers, teachers, students, and young people have met. And from that meeting, something powerful has been set in motion. So as we close the inaugural CXC Regional Education Conference and open the doors to the ministerial forum that now follows, it is my absolute profound privilege and honor to offer the vote of thanks on behalf of the Caribbean Examinations Council. To our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Edward Ali, Pro-Registrar and Deputy CEO, your steady hand guided every moment of this joint ceremony with grace, precision, and warmth. Thank you, Dr. Ali, for holding the current as the many streams came together. To Dr. Nicole Manning, our indefatigable Director of Operations, your conference summary was more than a report. It was really a mirror held up to the region, reflecting not just depth, but what collectively we possess in terms of our regional education ecosystem, but the imperative of adapting decisively to the pressing demands of the digital era. Over the past 3 days, you led the team CXC to make history by moving this conference from conception to successful conclusion, and as a region, we are well better for it. To Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, Chairman of CXC, your remarks reminded us that this work is never merely administrative. It is civilizational. You call us to be bold, to be activists, to be honest about where the Caribbean education stands, and to be unapologetic in terms of our ambition. We are grateful as always for your vision and your voice. To Ms. Alison Drayton of CARICOM, the Honorable Octavia Alfred, Chair, Council of Ministers of OECS, and Professor Peter Scott of the Commonwealth of Learning, your contribution has expanded our frame of reference. You situated the Caribbean education with a global conversation while affirming our regional identity. Our lived experience and our own systems of knowledge remain central to how we move forward. That balance is not easy to strike, but you achieved it with skill and competence. CXC, thank you for your contributions. To our Registrar and CEO, Dr. Wayne Wesley, today we're not seeing the bow tie, and luckily we're not hearing you sing, but your words throughout this conference have been a clarion call. You have challenged us, every one of us, as actors in the Caribbean education, from policymakers to practitioners, to embrace the activist CXC truly means. That is, excellence is not just a destination for few, but a birthright for every Caribbean learner. Thank you for your leadership, your courage, and your conviction. A special thank you to the Honorable Sonia Parag, Chair of COSAD and Minister of Education of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, for your keynote address. You set the tone for this forum and what we need to achieve. You reminded us about transformative, equity-driven, regional coherent educational policy. The stream of Guyana's educational journal joins this confluence with purpose and pride. To the Senator, Dr. the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, and our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale, Ms. Kadia Wills McCullough, and the full ministry team, we owe you a debt of gratitude that I know no round of applause, however generous, barely begins to repay. You walked with CXC through the planning of these events, through turbulence, uncertainty, and you never wavered. The government of Jamaica did not merely host this conference, they believed in it. We thank you, and we also thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Jamaica. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm round of applause for the government of Jamaica. And what would be this conference without our sponsors? Beyond their generous support, we are truly happy to have sponsors who believe in the Caribbean education. So let me once again acknowledge Stephen Austin, Veretta, Hachette Learning, Wisdom CRM, ACCA Caribbean, Surpass Assessment, Liberty Business, and the Commonwealth of Learning. Ladies and gentlemen, behind every confluence, there are those who quietly dig the channels, those who clear the obstacles and allow the water to run. The CXC conference and forum planning team members, whose name many in the room may not be aware of, but whose fingerprints are on every detail of what you have experienced, deserve our deepest recognition. So, to my amazing CXC colleagues, thank you for being the architects of the moments. To each of you in this room, in fact, I'd ask you to just stand and receive the appreciation from the entire region. Thank you, thank you. To every presenter, panelist, moderator, and participants who traveled across the Caribbean and just to be here, to be part of this conference, you certainly brought the current. Your research, your stories, your questions, even your pushbacks made the discussion very substantive. You did not merely come to observe, you came to contribute, you delivered, yes, you did it. To the management and staff of the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, to our technical teams, our entertainers, ushers, and many vendors and volunteers who ensured every detail from the first welcome, that high, right, to this very moment. Everything was executed with excellence. Thank you. You too are part of this story. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the river meets. The CXC Inaugural Regional Educational Conference has given us our analysis, our dialogue, and our shared conviction. Now the ministerial forum begins. The moment where conviction must meet commitment, and commitment must become policy. So, to the ministers of education gathered here today from across the Caribbean, the region has spoken. The evidence has been laid before you. The practitioners have shown you what is possible. And so what happens in the room when you're about to, the one which you're about to enter, that will matter. And we trust with the burden of governance that you will lead based on wise policy making. So on behalf of our singing registrar and CEO, Dr. Wayne Wesley, the board of CXC and the entire CXC family, I just want to say thank you. Thank you all. And let us carry the confluence forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are dismissed.